Alright guys, today here on Grow the Earth, I'm going to show you ways that you can preserve your cilantro for up to a year. Alright guys, today we're out here in the garden and we've got our cilantro behind us, as you've seen in the intro. And ours starting to flower. Now that's perfectly fine because this will make coriander seed, which is another spice. But we want it for cilantro. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through different ways that you can either A, make this last longer in your refrigerator, or B, you can actually preserve it in different ways for different purposes. And some of these ways are good for up to a year of storage, maybe longer depending on the storage conditions. So what we're going to do is we're going to harvest some of this here behind us, and then I'll meet you guys inside. Alright guys, now we're back inside here, and I've taken the liberty of go ahead and kind of getting some of the bigger stems and stuff off of here that we cut off outside. And we're going to go over the first, the more normal way that you probably know of to store your cilantro. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to wash it, and then we want to take some paper towels and you want to try and remove as much moisture off of these as you can. Okay, because whenever you get a bag of cilantro or a bundle from the store, the water in there is what's going to make it kind of come together and get all slimy and gross. The more moisture that you can remove off of these leaves, the longer that they'll stay, they'll keep from rotting. So we want to remove as much moisture as we can. And then once we get all that moisture, as much of this as we can anyway, the second key to this is a Ziploc bag, because we want to try and keep the moisture from being pulled out of it by the refrigerator. So again, once we get all this patted dry, and you're not going to be able to get it all, but the more that you can remove out now, the longer it's going to last. So once we've got all this, I know this bag's probably a little small, but we're going to make it fit. We're going to put it off in here, and you're going to want to, once you get it all in here, as I struggle to get it in here, we're going to try and remove as much of that air as we can, because again, our air holds moisture, so we want to get as much of that out. Now you take this and you put it in your refrigerator, and you can keep for a week, week and a half, this way. Alright guys, and for our second technique, we all start out the same way. We're going to wash and we're going to pat this stuff dry. Okay? We want to make sure it's dry, at least on the top side of it. The second one is, what we're going to do is we're going to take our cilantro and we're going to stand it straight up in a glass of water like you would a flower. And this accomplishes two things. If your bottoms are fresh cut, you're still going to be able to provide a little bit of water that will, now it's not going to root, so we don't have to worry about that. But what it is going to do is it's going to keep these leaves kind of fresh. And to further help that, we're going to cover it with a plastic bag of some sort. You can use a Ziploc bag, you can use pretty much whatever you want to. But we just want to cover it to keep as much of that water and moisture from being evacuated from this area. And this way, from what I understand, we can store this for 2.5 to 3 weeks in the refrigerator. Alright guys, and for our third way that we're going to make our cilantro last longer. Now this, from what I understand, I just actually found this on the internet just a few days ago. and it intrigued me in making this because I can't believe we never thought of it before. Uh, Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to take this cilantro, we're going to make a pesto out of it, and then we're going to freeze it in ice cubes. Um, and of course, these are the same ones. If you watch the video we did on our lemon harvest, these are the same ones. They've got a little neoprene silicone bottom to them, and we're going to take the cilantro, and what we have a little bullet here. You can use any food processor, a blender, whatever you want. And we're just going to pack this little guy full of whatever we can fit in there. Because as you know, as this stuff goes around in a little blender or a food processor, you can have this thing packed full, and once it goes around a few times, it's, a quarter of it. So we can really pack this. And of course, you want to wash this, as you would any cilantro before we do this part. Because even though we grow organically, so we don't have to worry about any pesticides or anything like that, you still have dirt and, leaves and things like that that are going to end up falling onto, get splashed up on the cilantro, and there's nothing worse that's going to ruin something like this than having a bunch of grit and dirt floating around in it. Not only that, if you're growing a decent sized garden, you attract other animals. So, then a little bit of bird poop, we don't want that in our pesto, right? So like I said, we're going to pack this full, and what we're going to do, and I apologize if this gets loud, but I want to make sure that we go through the whole process here. We're going to put this in here. Now, unfortunately, we're going to have to do this. Now it's kind of broken up a little bit, and you can do this two ways. We can add a little bit of water so that we can get this into a slurry to where we can pour into here, or we're actually going to use an olive oil because and it's going to serve two different purposes. This is going to be more for if you've got a meat or something like that you want to add cilantro to, and you've already got your oil mixed in with it, so you can kind of pan fry stuff with it. If you mix it with water, then it will be more of for if you're going to add it into a soup or something like that. That way that it will, you don't want to have that oily layer sitting on top of a soup because you're already going to have that naturally from whatever else you've got in there. So we don't want to add any extra oil that's going to kind of, muddy it up. So we're going to open this up. We're going to add a little bit of olive oil to it. And now, guys, you don't have to add a whole lot. We're just adding something to basically make this a slurry. We don't want to have just a big mess with too much oil in it. You can always add more. It's really hard to take it back out. Yeah, we need a little bit more oil. Now you're just going to have to add oil as you go to try and get the consistency you want, because we're going to add the oil is what is going to solidify to make your little ice cubes. So we got to have enough of it in there for that, but we just don't want to overpower everything. All right. So now, when you're happy with your consistency, and for lack of a better word, we want it to look almost like a baby food. But we can spoon it into our little ice cube tray here. And, you can fill these up, you can fill them halfway, just whatever you need to do. But we're going to put this in these ice cube trays, and we're going to put them in the freezer. Now, once they have frozen and solidified, we can pop these out, and you can put them in a Ziploc bag. That way, whenever you're ready to use one of these, you just reach into your Ziploc bag, take one out, throw it in your pan, we're good to go. We don't have to keep an ice tray like this in our refrigerator the whole time, you know, because I don't know about you, but I don't usually have a whole lot of room in my refrigerator or my freezer, you know, with a family of 4. So to conserve space, we can pop these out, put them in a little Ziploc bag, and they store real easy over in the corner. All right, guys, and our fourth way that we're going to store cilantro that is going to make it keep for a little bit longer than what we normally have cilantro around for is going to be freezing it. Now, the preparation for this is exactly the same as if you're just going to store it in your refrigerator. You want to wash it, pat it dry, and remove as much moisture as you can. Put it in a Ziploc bag and pull all the air out and put it in your freezer. Now, this way is not going to keep your color. Eventually, you're going to lose this green color. It's not going to be good for garnishing anything. It's not going to be good for in a salad or anything like that. This is simply going to be good for putting in soups and some other form of cooking with it. We're not going to be able to use this as we would as fresh or anything like that, because the freezing process is going to really make it kind of limp and lifeless. And it's not going to be visually appealing. The flavor will still be there. Freezing is a good way to keep the flavor of the cilantro, but it's not going to be visually appealing at all. So now we're going to move on to our last one. All right, now our last way, and this is the way that we're going to be able to store this for up to a year. And there's no refrigeration required for this part. The last part we're going to do is we're going to take this and we're going to dehydrate it. And all you got to do is remove the bigger stems and stuff. You want to leave it all connected, because otherwise these trays have holes in them and it will fall down through, and then the majority of your cilantro will be in the bottom of your dehydrator, just being burnt to a crisp. So we're going to lay this all out in a nice thin layer, like you would with most anything that you're going to dehydrate. And after we get this all laid out, we put it on our dehydrator, and after it goes through its dehydrating process, we need to, and this is a very important step, we need to make sure that this is fully dry. If it's not fully dry, what will happen is once you break it up and put it in your container, and this is just an old cilantro container that we had, what we bought previously, and we just refilled it with our cilantro that we collected last year. If it is not fully dry, what you will have is mold. And a little bit of mold in one of these containers will ruin the whole batch. So we want to make sure that it's fully dry, because otherwise we're going to ruin all of our hard work and all of our time to basically make a mold factory inside of our container. So, I mean, from last year, we dehydrated enough that we filled this thing to the complete top. Now we use cilantro a lot, so this is what we've got left from last year. And this, as you can see, of course, it kept for a year. It's still good. There's no issues with it. Once it's dehydrated and you remove all the moisture, what's left is it'll pretty much keep forever. And this is another thing with this, since we can keep this so long, we don't have to go buy those little bitty containers of spice at the store that cost so dang much. I mean, this is 2 ounces when it's all the way full. Can you imagine how much 2 ounces of this cilantro, dried cilantro at the store would cost? And we got it for, well, basically a $2 packet of seeds. So, guys, as always, we want to use God's gift to the fullest extent. We want to make sure that we're not wasting anything that God gives us. We want to make sure that everything that we do is working towards not only His glory, but also to His benefit. So, as always, guys, pray over your family, pray over your garden. Include God in your life and in your garden, and have a great day.